Your yard can look expensive on a shoestring budget, and most homeowners have no idea how close they already are. After 15 years in landscaping and garden design, I've walked through thousands of properties, and I can tell you the difference between a yard that looks $100,000 and one that looks like an afterthought usually comes down to a handful of decisions. Not a full renovation, not a contractor, just choices. Plastic pots undermining beautiful plants. Bare fence panels draining color out of every bed in front of them. Garden edges so ragged they make the whole yard look neglected no matter how much you've planted. One of the ideas on this list is the single most dramatic transformation I've seen any homeowner make, and it costs less than a can of paint, which it literally is. Stay with me, because that one lands at number 1, and it will change how you look at your yard. Let's get into it, starting with number 10. Number 10. Edge your garden beds cleanly. Here's something most people don't realize. A garden bed can be packed with healthy, beautiful plants and still look messy. And I see this constantly. Homeowners invest in good shrubs, they mulch, they water, and then the edge between the lawn and the bed just dissolves. Grass creeps in. The soil spills out. The line between intentional garden and area where things grow disappears entirely. The result is a yard that reads as unfinished, even when there's real effort and real money behind it. I walked onto a property once where the owner had spent close to $4,000 on planting over a couple of seasons. Beautiful selection, good spacing, but the beds had never been properly edged, and the whole thing looked like an overgrown verge. That $4,000 was completely invisible. It took one afternoon with a flat spade to change the entire feel of that yard. Here's what's actually happening visually. Clean edges create a boundary that tells the eye where to look. They separate the planted area from the lawn in a way that signals control and intention. Without that line, the eye has nowhere to land. Everything blurs together. The fix is simple. A half-moon edger or a flat spade cuts a clean vertical drop of 2 to 3 inches between the bed and the lawn. That's the standard. 2 to 3 inches deep, cut straight down. Don't bevel it, straight down. Then pull the excess turf out and dispose of it. If you want a longer-lasting solution, steel or aluminum landscape edging installed at the border holds that line through winter heave and summer growth, and it eliminates the need to recut every 4 to 6 weeks. Do this once, maintain it monthly, and the entire yard looks more expensive overnight. But here's the thing. Clean edges only do so much if what's sitting inside those beds is undermining the whole look. And that's where most people are quietly making a mistake they don't even notice yet. Coming in at number 9, swap your plastic pots for terracotta or concrete. Let me ask you something. You've chosen a beautiful plant. You've put real thought into where it goes, what it needs, how it'll look in 6 months, and then you drop it into a thin-walled black plastic nursery pot and leave it on your front step. Why would you do that? Plastic pots do something visually damaging that most homeowners underestimate. They read as temporary. The eye sees plastic and interprets the plant as something that hasn't found its home yet. It doesn't matter how good the plant is. The container signals that a decision hasn't been made. I worked with a homeowner a few years back who had a beautiful front entry, good proportions, decent paving, but 4 oversized plastic pots flanking the door, all in that faded charcoal color that starts looking chalky within about 18 months in direct sun. We swapped 2 of them for concrete-look pots, the faux concrete composite ones that weigh a fraction of real concrete but look virtually identical, and the other 2 for terracotta. Same plants, same positions. The entry went from feeling like a rental property to feeling genuinely designed. Nothing else changed. The specific materials to look for: natural terracotta, which breathes and ages beautifully, poured concrete, or fiber-reinforced composite pots rated for freeze-thaw cycles if you're in a colder climate. That rating matters. A composite pot without freeze-thaw resistance will crack in its first winter if water gets into the wall. Look for that on the label before you buy. Budget versions from large garden centers now replicate the weight and texture of concrete convincingly, usually in the $30 to $70 range per pot. If you're finding value here, subscribe. I put out videos like this every week. And speaking of making inexpensive things look intentional, the next idea is about how a single planting decision can give your garden beds the rhythm of a professionally designed landscape. Number 8, use repetition of one plant for a designer effect. Walk past the garden of almost any high-end home and you'll notice something. It doesn't look chaotic. There's a thread running through it, a plant that reappears, a form that echoes itself, a color that keeps coming back. That's not an accident. That's one of the most fundamental principles in professional planting design, and it costs exactly the same as buying random single plants, which is what most homeowners do. The instinct when you go to a garden center is to buy one of everything: one salvia, one ornamental grass, one lavender, one whatever caught your eye. The result is a border that looks like a collection rather than a composition. Every plant is competing. Nothing settles the eye. It reads as busy, and busy reads as amateur, even when every individual plant is actually quite good. The fix is simple. Choose one plant and buy 3 or 5 of them. Always odd numbers. That's a genuine design principle, not a myth. Even numbers create symmetry, and symmetry in a naturalistic border looks stiff and uncomfortable. 3 or 5 of the same ornamental grass or lavender or salvia, spaced evenly across a border or repeated in 2 or 3 points around the garden, immediately creates rhythm. The eye moves from one to the next and feels satisfied. The repetition signals that someone made a decision. Lavender works brilliantly for this, drought-tolerant, fragrant, and it holds its structure for 3 to 5 years before needing to be replaced. Ornamental grasses like Calamagrostis carlfoerster give you vertical movement and winter structure. 3 of either one, placed at roughly equal intervals across a border, will do more for the look of that bed than 20 different species crammed in together. We're into the middle section now, and this is where the tips start compounding on each other. The next one is about what happens after dark, and most yards completely give it up. Number 7. Uplight a tree or architectural plant. After dark, most yards simply disappear. The porch light goes on, maybe a string of lights across the patio, and everything beyond that radius just becomes a dark void. It's a wasted opportunity, and one of the easiest to fix cheaply. Uplighting is exactly what it sounds like, a ground-level fixture aimed upward at a tree, a large shrub, or a statement plant. What it does visually is dramatic. It creates depth, shadow, and height in a space that would otherwise be flat and invisible after sunset. It makes the garden feel intentional even in the dark. More than that, it turns the yard into something you actually look out at from inside the house in the evening. I put a single uplight at the base of a Japanese maple for a client. A medium-sized tree, maybe 8 feet tall with that gorgeous layered branching structure. During the day, it was a nice tree. At night, lit from below, the shadows played across the canopy, and the whole thing looked like a piece of sculpture. Her exact words were, "I've had that tree for 6 years, and I've never really looked at it before." That's what one $60 solar uplight did. The spec to know, color temperature. For any landscape lighting, you want 2700 Kelvin or warmer. That's the warm white end of the spectrum. Anything above 3000 Kelvin starts going cool and bluish, and it makes plants look washed out and clinical rather than warm and inviting. Solar uplights now regularly hit the 2700 Kelvin range, and decent ones with a 12-hour runtime are available for $40 to $80 per fixture. Place them 8 to 12 inches from the base of the plant, angled to catch the underside of the canopy. One fixture, one tree, $40. Your yard looks completely different at night. And if lighting transforms what you see from inside, the next idea transforms what you see from outside. Specifically, what it does to your patio situation when you can't afford to pour concrete. Number 6. Create a gravel seating area as a patio alternative. Here's something most people don't consider. A poured concrete patio averages between $8 and $20 per square foot installed, depending on your region and finish. A properly built gravel seating area using decomposed granite or pea gravel runs between $2 and $5 per square foot for materials. The visual result, done correctly, is genuinely comparable, and in some design contexts, it actually looks more intentional. The mistake homeowners make when they try this is skipping the preparation, and that's what kills the result. If you just pour gravel onto unprepared ground, you get an uneven surface that migrates into the lawn, grows weeds through it within one season, and looks exactly like someone cheaped out, which is the opposite of what we're going for. Done properly, excavate 4 to 6 inches of existing soil. Lay a heavy-duty woven landscape fabric, not the cheap non-woven type, which breaks down in 2 to 3 years and lets weeds through anyway. Woven fabric rated to 50 years. Add 2 inches of compacted crushed aggregate base, then 2 to 3 inches of decomposed granite or pea gravel on top. Then edge it. This is the critical part. Define the border with steel edging, Corten steel, or full-depth concrete pavers. Anything that creates a clean, hard line between the gravel and the surrounding lawn or beds. Without that defined edge, the area reads as unfinished no matter how good the preparation underneath is. A defined 12 by 16 foot gravel seating area, properly prepared and bordered, photographs beautifully and holds its shape through seasons. Add a table and chairs, a couple of planted pots at the corners, and a ground-level uplight on a neighboring shrub, and you have an outdoor room. That's the key word, room. We're building outdoor rooms on a budget. The next idea adds structure that makes any corner of your yard feel like it was designed from the start. Coming in at number 5, add a simple urn or bubbling fountain. Sound is underused in garden design. Most homeowners think about what the yard looks like and completely ignore what it sounds like, which is a mistake because a garden with moving water sounds completely different to one without it. It sounds calm, it sounds expensive, and it masks road noise and neighbor noise in a way that makes the whole outdoor space feel more like a retreat. An urn fountain is the easiest entry point. It's a sealed container, usually ceramic, concrete, or resin, with a small submersible pump inside that recirculates water up through a central pipe and lets it run back down the sides or spill over the rim. No digging, no plumbing, no permits. You fill it with water, plug it in, and it runs. The design impact is significant because it gives the garden a focal point. Every well-designed outdoor space has at least one, a point the eye is drawn to, a reason to look in a particular direction. Without a focal point, the eye doesn't know where to go, and the space feels unresolved. Here's something most people don't consider. The pump rating matters more than most realize. For a standard urn fountain in the 80 to 150 gallon per hour range, you want a pump rated for at least double the urn's water volume per hour. That keeps a consistent, visible water flow without the pump straining. A pump working too hard in a small reservoir overheats and fails within 1 to 2 seasons, which is exactly what happens when people buy a cheap combination unit and wonder why it stops working before the first summer is out. Place the urn in a bed rather than on open hardstanding wherever possible. Nestled among planting with a flat stone or slate slab beneath it, it looks like it's always been there. Now we're into the territory where each idea starts doing more visual heavy lifting. This next one is about a garden design trick that adds structure and personality to your yard at the same time. Number 4. Use black-framed raised garden beds as a focal point. Raised garden beds have been around forever, but something shifted in the last several years. The move away from natural timber toward powder-coated black metal frames changed how they read visually, from utilitarian vegetable patch to deliberate design feature. And the market caught up fast. You can now buy well-made black metal raised beds in a range of sizes for $120 to $250, which is a fraction of what custom built-in planters would cost. What makes black metal work so well in a garden is contrast. Against green planting, against stone paving, against a timber fence, the black frame pops. It reads as intentional. It says, someone made a decision here, not just found a place to put some soil. The critical installation detail is drainage. A raised bed needs a minimum 8 to 12 inches of growing depth to support anything other than shallow-rooted herbs. Line the base with landscape fabric, the woven type, to prevent soil migration without blocking drainage. If you're placing the bed on hard standing rather than soil, you need to add drainage holes or a layer of coarse gravel at the base. Without it, the soil becomes waterlogged in heavy rain and roots suffocate. This is the failure mode I see most often. A beautiful setup that loses plants every wet season because nobody thought about what happens below the surface. Fill with a mix of 60% quality topsoil, 30% compost, and 10% perlite. That ratio gives you the fertility and drainage balance that keeps plants looking lush and healthy through a full growing season. 2 or 3 black metal raised beds arranged in a cluster, with a gravel path between them and a solar uplight nearby. You've built a designed garden zone that looks expensive and is entirely functional. We're in the final stretch now. The last 3 ideas are the ones that make the biggest visual difference. Starting with this one, which most people never think about until they see someone else do it. Number 3. Refresh old pots and garden furniture with spray paint. I'll be honest with you, this is the one that gets the most eye rolls when I mention it, and the most amazement when people actually try it. Spray paint. A $5 can of spray paint has saved thousands of dollars worth of outdoor furniture and planters from the skip in my years of doing this work. Here's what's happening in most backyards right now. Faded terracotta pots that have gone chalky. Plastic planters that have UV bleached to a streaky, patchy gray. Metal garden chairs that have gone rusty around the joints. All of it creating a background hum of shabbiness that drags the whole yard down. And here's the thing. The plants in those pots might be beautiful. The furniture might be perfectly solid. But the eye doesn't care about structural integrity. It responds to surface and color. And a faded, patchy, chalky surface reads as neglect, full stop. The fix: Stone Effect spray paint in warm gray or slate or a straight matte black transforms the surface in 15 minutes. For terracotta, clean the pot with a stiff brush, let it dry completely. And I mean fully dry, not just surface dry, because terracotta is porous and any trapped moisture causes the paint to bubble and peel within a season. Then apply 2 thin coats with a 20-minute dry time between them. For metal furniture, sand off any loose rust with 120 grit sandpaper first, wipe down with a degreaser, then apply a spray paint rated for metal with rust-inhibiting primer built in. The transformation is immediate. Those same pots, that same furniture. But now they look intentional, chosen. part of a considered outdoor space rather than things that just accumulated over time. If you're thinking about making some of these changes, there's one thing I want you to hold in your mind while we cover the last two ideas, and that is, every one of these improvements compounds on the others. The next one is a perfect example. Number 2, anchor a garden bed with one statement shrub or small tree. Every great garden bed has a hierarchy. There's a plant that commands attention and everything else supports it. Without that anchor, you get a border that's visually flat, plants of similar height and similar visual weight, competing equally for attention, and none of them winning. It reads as busy, and busy reads as amateur. The anchor plant doesn't have to be large to do the job. It has to be architecturally distinct. A Japanese maple, even a young one of 3 to 4 feet, gives you that distinctive layered branching structure and incredible autumn color. A standard trained olive or bay, clipped into a ball on a clear stem, reads as immediately formal and expensive. A clipped photinia or pittosporum in a cone or ball form gives you year-round evergreen structure that costs $60 to $100 as a young specimen and looks established within 2 seasons. Here's what a lot of people get wrong. They plant the anchor in the middle of the bed. Don't do that. Position it at roughly 1/3 of the bed's length from one end, the golden third if you want the design term, and let everything else flow away from it. Taller plants behind, lower mounding plants in front, ground cover at the edges. That layered arrangement anchored by the statement plant is the structure you see in every high-end garden border. I worked on a long, narrow side border for a homeowner in the Midwest. It had been there for years, full of perennials, but it always looked flat. We added a single standard trained olive at the 1/3 point chuoto and a clipped box ball at the other end as a bookend. Within 1 season, it looked like a different garden. The planting hadn't changed. The structure had. That's the power of an anchor. And that brings us to number 1. This is the one I teased in the intro, the one that costs almost nothing and does more for the overall look of your yard than almost any other single change you can make. Number 1, paint your fence a dark, moody color. Let me tell you what a fence actually is in a garden. Most people think of it as a boundary, a privacy screen, a thing that keeps the neighbor's dog out. And that's true. But from a design perspective, a fence is a backdrop. It's the canvas that every plant in front of it is displayed against. And if that canvas is the wrong color, or no color at all, it undermines everything you've planted in front of it. The default for decades has been natural wood, sometimes stained, sometimes just weathered. And natural weathered wood goes gray, then it goes streaky. Within 3 to 4 years of installation, an untreated timber fence in most climates looks tired, silvery, patchy, with dark staining at the post bases where moisture sits. And here's the thing, even plants that look beautiful in isolation look washed out against that background. The midtones compete, nothing pops. Your border might have wonderful plants in it, and the fence turns them invisible. Dark paint changes the relationship completely. Deep charcoal, forest green, navy, any of these creates a backdrop that makes green plants read as vivid and lush, makes flower color explode, and makes the whole border look professionally composed. It's the same principle as displaying artwork against a dark gallery wall. The contrast does the work. And here's something that surprises most homeowners. This works on old fences. You don't need a new fence. I worked on a property in the Northeast where the timber fence was 8 years old, gray, weathered, past its visual prime. The homeowner was quoted $4,000 to replace it. Instead, we power washed it, let it dry for 48 hours, applied a timber preservative coat, and then 2 coats of exterior matte paint in deep charcoal. Total material cost, under $150. The entire back garden looked different. The plants popped. The space felt considered. The homeowner called it the best money she'd ever spent on her yard. And she wasn't wrong. The spec that matters. For timber fencing, use an exterior matte finish rated for horizontal and vertical surfaces with a minimum 10-year durability guarantee. Apply in dry conditions above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Below that temperature, the paint doesn't cure properly and you'll see peeling within 1 season. 2 coats minimum, with the first coat thinned by 10% for better penetration into weathered timber. That's what gets you the adhesion that lasts. Would you try this on your fence? I'd genuinely like to know. Drop your experience in the comments, especially if you've already done it, because before and afters from real yards are some of the most useful things in that section. None of this requires starting over. Pick the one idea on this list that's most visible from your front door or your most used window and start there. One change compounds into the next. If you want to keep going with ideas like these, My video on garden design mistakes that make your yard look dated is right on your screen. Click it now.